Habibis Podcast, three game developers, no, it's two game developers today.
It's just the two of us, Rami.
It's just two game developers, yeah.
Just the two of us. Osama's not here.
Well, but Osama's with us in spirit, right?
Yeah.
Osama's with us with spirit.
We miss him. We miss him a lot.
So, yeah, for those who are new, normally this is three game developers drinking good RFT. I'm Rami Ismail.
I'm Fawzi Mesmar.
And normally we also have Osama Dorias, but Osama Dorias couldn't be here today due to things he has to do in life. If you've been listening, you know that he's kind of like moving stuff and he's busy. So we decided that we'll just give it a go and see if we're still interesting with just the two of us.
Can we be interesting without Osama? It's a question I think about myself.
It's a common thought where you just go like, wow, is Osama carrying all of this with his transitions?
He most probably is.
He most probably is. He's mostly the laugh track as well, which is very helpful.
You gotta have to make up for it as well.
Yeah, we sound funnier when Osama's around.
Can you edit in some like Osama laugh tracks to this? Like
yeah.
he's not here, but he's just laughing at all the jokes.
Yeah, I can add some old Osama laugh tracks in here. That totally works.
It'd be like in a part podcast, part sitcom.
Yeah, it would be really scary though if you're listening to two people talk and then near the end suddenly just a third person starts laughing.
It'd be like we're performing for Osama. We're on the stage and Osama's our only audience.
Hey, we can also do that. We just send Osama this recording and just let him laugh to it. And just record that. We just record him listening to the episode.
Yeah, I like that. Many good ideas. So we might be three game developers on the show after all.
It might actually work out. Who knows? Have you been playing anything this week, or was it a busy week for you as well?
It's a busy week, but I have to make time for games. So like shipping season is on and we're working hard. So but I still have to play video games. So I played this game that just launched on Xbox Game Pass. Even though I did not complete it on Xbox Game Pass, it's called 12 Minutes.
Okay, yeah. I played that too.
Oh, you played it? Oh, that's cool. I really want to talk about this game. Like, I want to talk about everything surrounding this game. Should we give people like a spoiler warning?
A spoiler warning, yeah. Okay, so if you're listening for the next 12 minutes at least, we're probably going to be talking about 12 minutes.
Probably more.
Yeah. We'll put it in the show notes. If you want to skip this part, you still want to play 12 minutes yourself, like just check in the show notes, skip this part, and then go from there.
Come back to it later.
Come back after we're done with the time loop.
Yeah, and then maybe like we can have a minute or two for people who come back, after skipping the spoilers, to tell them that yay, nay, or like a summary of our discussion.
Well, I'm very curious to hear what happens there, but that conclusion then will be spoiler free. This part will full of spoilers.
Yes,
I don't think you can talk about this game without spoilers. Much.
Really hard to talk about it without spoilers,
right.
Especially like a lot of the things I want to dive into are like narrative and plot related things. So
okay, how about you kick off?
Okay, so spoilers start now. So. There's a lot of things that I like about this game, and there's a lot of things that I dislike about this game. But maybe we should start with the description of what it is. 12 Minutes is an independent video game made by Luis Antonio of The Witness fame, or one of the people who worked on The Witness, I guess. It's a top-down adventure game, and it's literally point-and-click adventure game in which like you click on an area to move the character, you collect items, you put items on items to have stuff happen, you talk to characters, you unlock dialogue options, and then the story progresses. So it's an adventure game in all intents and purposes in terms of all the things that you'd expect from a point-and-click adventure game.
Mm-hmm.
The gimmick or the trick around this game is that it is, I think, inspired by how when you die in video games, you take your learnings that you had with you, and then you spawn, and then you play again. But you've learned something after you've died the last time. So in this game, you progress, and then after you progress, at some point the game loops. So you start again from the beginning of where you are. The entire game is top down, takes place in an apartment, like a small flat. The husband and a wife and a very dark secret hovering around them, and then a dude walks in and arrests them, and then after arresting them, something bad happens. Sometimes he shoots him, sometimes he shoots her, sometimes he doesn't shoot anybody, depending on what you did in the 12 minutes prior to this dude showing up. Many things could happen.
Right.
That's an interesting concept. I've seen it in a Japanese adventure game before, called it's the Nonary games or the Zero Escape theories.
Right. Yeah.
Ha-
There's also some Western games that have done it before,
Mhm.
but
Have you played
yeah.
the Nonary games?
No, I haven't. I did play one Western one called Save the Date, which was an IGF finalist back
Oh
in
yeah,
2013.
yeah,
Which this game reminded me of a lot,
yeah.
honestly.
Side note: Nonary games is totally your kind of thing, Rami.
Oh,
By the way, you liked Aegis Rim.
yeah, I did.
For me, Nonary games is just as good, if not better.
Wow. Well, better
And
than Aegis Rim is
those
that's a big one.
story-wise, it is so complex and compelling.
Right.
The three games are really, really interesting for me. So definitely
Okay.
check them out when you have the time, and we should have a spoiler cast on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
I would love that.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I mostly agree with your description. The cop is obviously sort of the interesting figure here. You've got your main
Mm-hmm.
character, and then you've got the wife,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got the cop. And the cop shows up somewhere halfway in the middle of the 12 minutes, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
about 5 or 6 minutes in.
Yeah.
And from that point on, the sort of like state of the game changes very rapidly
Yeah.
because up until the 6 minutes, you kind of have the opportunity to prepare. So
Yeah.
you're trying to get information out of the wife,
Yeah.
right? And then after the 6 minutes, the dynamic changes. You're trying to survive.
Yeah.
So you've got this loop going that is 6 minutes of prep, 6 minutes of prep and information gathering that you get almost regardless.
Yeah. Oh, there were. I've made endings in which, like, the dude never showed up.
Right. Yeah. You
We
can.
just spoke and left the apartment just before
Yep.
the dude showed up, and then that was it.
Yep. And there's also one where he leaves and just never knocks on the door.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different opportunities, but the sort of structure, the main structure of the game is you have 6 minutes to prep for him,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have 6 minutes to survive.
To deal with
effectively.
him when he comes over.
Right. And it's an interesting. I will say it worked really well.
It's compelling,
The
yeah, for sure.
the core loop of it works really, really well.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, and the sort of heart of it is that Louis, like the developer, has 6 minutes to make you care about this couple.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first loop, right? They
Yeah.
have 6 minutes. There's 6 minutes to make you care enough that you want to figure this out. Because if you don't care about the central couple, it doesn't work,
No.
right? So you start the game, and the first loop is pretty much just a date. You get home. There's a
Mm.
surprise. The wife character, who is voiced by Daisy Ridley of Star Wars
Yeah.
fame.
Yeah. The husband is Willem Dafoe, I think.
Yeah, exactly. The actors playing these characters are clearly good actors,
Yeah.
and the dialogue is believable. And you come home, and she asks to sit on. She asks whether you want a dessert because she made a surprise, and tells you to like tell her when you're ready for dessert. So you walk around the house a little bit. You don't know where anything is. You don't know what anything does. So you just kind of follow the instructions, and you end up having a date.
Yeah.
And there's a surprise in that she is pregnant,
Yes.
which is a moment of big celebration, and you can either be excited about that or you can not be excited about that. And then no matter what you do, eventually the cop shows up,
Mhm.
and in most cases you'll end up getting strangled,
Yeah.
right? So you end up getting strangled, and if you end up getting strangled, then that's it. You're dead, and your guy just sort of respawns, gasping for breath in the door where the story starts, and you
Mhm.
hear your wife from the bathroom again, and she comes out of the bathroom and she says hi again, and you realize, oh, okay, I'm stuck in a time loop, right?
Yeah.
So for the first part of the game, I think the first third of the game, you're trying to resolve these loops, trying to figure out what is happening.
What's going on?
What is
Exactly.
happening, right? Like, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I start to unravel the secret of
Yeah.
12 minutes.
They build
Right.
intrigue in a very cool way.
Very well done, and it's very well done in that it's very clear where the answers have to lie.
Mm-hmm.
They're with the wife, right? You have to
Yeah.
get information out of the wife.
Mm-hmm.
So you do a few loops just trying to focus on that, and the loops, I think they work pretty well, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least at the start, they work very well.
Yeah.
Because you have these dialogue trees and you have timings, and I think this is where the complexity of the game really shines, right?
Yeah.
This is not an easy game to make.
No.
This is an incredibly hard game to make because you're focusing on very difficult interactions, like preparing a table, or using a sink, or talking, having conversations that have to make sense.
Yeah.
Depending on different times, there's a lightning strike that happens,
Yeah.
a thunder strike that happens outdoors, and depending on whether you say certain things before or after it, they might have different effects. And communicating to the player that these moments are important is complicated.
Yeah. I like that there's like, a lot of these it's building on a butterfly effect kind of thing,
Mhm.
in which like there's a lot of very small pieces or like
Yeah.
small actions that happen, like the wife is thirsty, she needs to drink water, or like she doesn't notice you when you go into the apartment for the first time when she was in the shower, and
Right.
that has a key important in how you solve the problem. So like there's a lot of these small nuances that carry a big weight into
Right.
how you solve the puzzle, and you need
And
to notice these small things, take advantage of them, and then watch how wildly different the events will take place depending on how you interact with these moments.
Right. And a lot of this interaction is dialogue, right? A lot of
Mhm.
it is talking and then things playing out differently. And there are a lot of ways for things to play out. And as you said, Fauzi, I think one of the most interesting parts is obviously that your character retains information from previous loops. So as you pick certain dialogue options, you're actually unlocking things in the next loop, not in the current loop. The current loop is lost, but for the next loop, you'll have new information to play with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that too is incredibly complicated because you don't know necessarily what the player has available in the next loop. And they have this sort of subtle thing where if you've already set something, the text becomes orange.
Yeah.
And if you haven't set something when you're trying to select the text, it becomes red.
Yeah.
I thought that worked generally pretty well, and the same thing is honestly true for items, right? There's a little item menu where you can drag things from the menu onto other things, or you can drag them onto things into. But I think that's also where one of my biggest complaints lies.
Yeah.
in
I
the
have
game.
a lot of complaints
Right.
to dive into, but I still want to focus on the things I like first.
Okay, yeah. So I think I liked how it worked, and I like how it set up itself,
Yeah.
right? And then you get to about the halfway point,
Mhm.
right? And I think at the halfway point, the game kind of flips from, okay, how do we get information out of the wife to, okay, how do we use this information to get information out of the cop,
Yeah.
right? And I found that part still pretty compelling,
Yes. Agreed.
right? And the game does a really good job of offering you shortcuts
Mm-hmm.
to get to that point and not have to deal with the first half of the game anymore, which was a worry that I was really getting, that I had to do all these pretty complex things
Yeah.
every time.
I think it did that to certain degrees of success. There were still a lot of things that you needed to redo.
Right. But in general, you could skip ahead most parts. Like, for example, convincing the wife that you're stuck in a time loop.
Yeah, for example, yes.
At the start, that was like 6 or 7 options that took like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then at some point in the game, when you're switching to convincing the cop, it's just a single conversation prompt
Yeah.
that you take every time.
Yeah, of course. But there's still like some of these things in which like you're now preparing, and then you still have to pause and kiss the wife for the bajillionth time at this point.
Right.
And you go like, I don't want to skip through this and
Right.
get to the point where I'm talking to the cop about that other thing.
I usually skip the hello like kiss, because you could just hold fast forward and the guy would go not now and she'd go rude.
Yeah.
And I had that one every time.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, you will survive this presumably after we're done, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But so many outcomes happened Right. And I think that was the cool one. Like I've had outcomes where I ended up strangled. I've had outcomes where I ended up surviving,
Yes.
and just the clock ran out. I've
Mm-hmm.
had outcomes where I shot the killer.
Mm-hmm.
I've had outcomes where I got knocked out. I've got
Yeah.
outcomes where I just left the house.
You try to stab him and it punched the hell out of you.
He punched you. I got punched in many ways, very many
Yes,
ways.
that's true.
Um, I had the wife get murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I helped get the wife murdered
right.
in
Yes.
one of the playthroughs.
Yep. I hid away while she got super murdered.
Yeah.
Um, I will say that was one of the more uncomfortable runs of that game, and I
Yeah,
think that's
very
really well done.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Um, it was a scene that you only had to watch once, which I think helped. In like what, I don't know how many loops I ended up doing, but
Yeah, many.
quite a few loops. How long did you take before you got to the end?
2.5 hours, I think.
Oh, only 2.5. Wow, well done.
Yeah.
I took about 4.
4, huh?
Yeah,
Yes.
I got stuck near the end.
Ah, okay.
I went very
the
smooth.
watch one.
No, the watch one. Which watch one? Where you just had to stare at the watch?
But you had to stare at the watch. I thought that's a
I,
bit unfair.
I recognized that one pretty early on.
Oh.
So I was not too shocked by that. It was the baby shirt.
Ah, yeah.
That one I spend probably like an hour and a half of my playtime in that specific loop.
Oh, wow. No, I saw that coming, to be honest.
So it's funny. Like so one of the interesting things, I think, if you haven't played 12 minutes and you're listening along, when we're talking about these different situations, they all always start from the exact same setup. The loops progress, but when a loop progresses, you unlock more information, but it still starts the exact same way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to get the game into these different states, you actually have to do things to push the game into that state. It's not like after the 6th loop, the start of it changes or anything. It's still the exact same thing. You're just now picking things that give you a different outcome that you might have unlocked or gotten available to you earlier on or later on. Yeah, finding the pocket watch for me was actually one of the most complicated things in the game because it was really hard to see on my screen,
It
if at all.
was hard to see on most screens. I have a very
Right.
big TV when I was playing the game, and that took me that I'd say maybe 30 minutes until I really saw that. Like that was the one that really slowed me down, I think.
Right. Yeah, because I found the vent. At some point, you find out that it's in the vent, and
Yeah.
you find the vent, and then you realize you have something to open it. I always grab the knife,
Yeah.
so I already had a knife.
I easily found a vent in the bedroom.
Right.
And opened that, and there was nothing there. And once I finished the game, I realized there's nothing to do there at all.
Right. It's just a vent.
Yeah, just a vent. Like at some point, they
Yeah.
had like a candle in it, and you could
Right.
do that.
Yeah.
But that amounted to nothing, and I felt that was kind of misleading.
I think there's a bunch of misleading stuff in there. There's also art on the wall, and you're like, "Wow, this is surely going to be relevant later." And it's like, "No,
nope.
it's art."
You can water the flower, also
Right.
not relevant.
Right. It's just nice little interactions.
Yeah.
Actually, I really like that. I thought that was really well done. I know it's a little distracting, but
And a game where, like, a lot of the puzzles rely on like small things, like the power switch and the lightning, and you need to. The game tells you that every small thing matters in this game, in this run through, and then you run into small things that don't matter. That's misleading. It feels unfair from the game.
I felt that was fine. I think the thing that worked for me is that whatever was important would always be referred to in the dialogue.
Yeah,
and I kind of caught on to that really quickly, right? She would say like, "Oh, thunder, I didn't expect that."
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like, "Okay, that seems important."
Yeah.
Right? Or say like, "Oh, honey, we really need to fix the light switch.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to get hurt."
Yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
like, "Okay, this one matters," right?
Mm-hmm.
I think for me that was why it worked because I did the other things just out of curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew they weren't the thing that I was going after because the game hadn't signaled to me that it was the thing that I was going after. The only time I really got stuck was with the mother's name, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because I had forgotten a long time ago what the mother's name was,
yeah.
right? Like I had, and I think this is one of my problems from here on out. I'm very impressed by the interaction model,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm very impressed by the dialogue tree.
Hmm.
The style of the game is just staggeringly well done.
I love it. This is actually something I wanted to mention is that this is clearly that the art style of the game is inspired by a bunch of classic visionary directors from an
Hmm.
era like Kubrick and those guys,
Hmm.
and like that's reflecting on the game in every way. Also, like it's a very very full cinematic experience. I think that's also enhanced with the casting that they've done. I've before
Yeah,
I did a mistake. William Defoe is actually
the
the
cop.
cop. The
Yeah,
husband is James McAvoy.
yeah, McAvoy.
So like
Yeah,
you got like a full star cast.
yep,
Let's adding all to the cinematic experience of what this game is. So, and the story is quite complex and full of plot twists and all of that sort of thing. So there is a sense to say that this game has a very nice homage to cinema
right.
and how
It's
it's
fun.
going forward.
It's funny because a lot of the gameplay is pretty janky,
Yes.
right? A lot of the gameplay, it's a straightforward like main interaction, and sort of like the animation of it are janky. But I think it speaks to how difficult what they tried to do here was
Yeah.
representing two people just being humans in video games, not in text but in actual gameplay, is incredibly hard.
It's so tough. We
It's
don't
not
have
a solved
much
problem,
to riff off, and you don't have
right?
much time as well.
Right. So even if you're just trying to get 12 minutes of a real life into a video game, right, and the reactions to events that are going to happen, I think a lot of people when they're making games, they think like, oh, then this happens, and then you can do all these things, and then that happens, and I think 12 minutes is the perfect antidote to that
Yeah.
because your brain kind of fills in how that works, and in 12 minutes you see how much work it actually is. I think
Agreed.
that was it for me. That the thing that really grabbed that game, that made that game interesting for me is, you know how you kind of get like a game developer vision if you're
Hmm.
a game dev and you start playing games and you watch 12 minutes and you're just sitting here and you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah. I completely
the
agree.
the challenge that is in just making these characters casually interesting
Hmm.
for even just 12 minutes
Yeah.
or even just the first 6 minutes, right? Because
Hmm.
after that violence comes back and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, video game. Um, but even just that in 12 minutes, making a normal life situation that can run out a certain number of ways
Hmm.
is just staggering amounts of work.
Yeah. I thought there was also a lot of interesting decisions from a game development point of view, like the perspective of the game
Mm,
really saves you a lot of hassle in terms of facial animation and like the the controlling the camera and finding stuff. Like it makes it very tight, and it will save you a lot of edge cases that you have to deal with having the camera focus from very known specific angles.
yeah. Yeah, it was clearly built from a cinematic point of view. And I will say, the first time I played this back 5 or 7 years ago, a long time ago, it already had that. That was a very early design decision, I think.
I can imagine. Yeah,
Um,
you can't add that midway.
right, right. I thought it was very like in terms of style, the game is gorgeous.
Yeah, but
Right,
but this is also gameplay, right? Because that means if I'm playing the game and I'm normally not looking at the characters' faces, that means that I don't need to. If I'm making a character model, their faces don't need to be that high res.
they need to be there. They don't need to exist even.
Exactly. We don't even
Right,
need to. We don't need to animate them. We don't need to worry about how they work. So like all of this like work around the gameplay, you don't need to focus on it. But instead, you
right,
focus on like this motion needs to work in the right way from this angle.
right.
The
And
proportions of the character needs to be readable from this angle.
right, and all the lifting that normally facial animations would do, you now have to do with acting.
Oh yeah,
Right,
exactly.
so, and they did well. I will admit the voice acting was extremely well done. There were not a lot of lines that I didn't believe or had a hard time believing.
Yeah, yeah.
I believed it from
Actually,
start to finish. I believed it.
there's Academy-winning nominees like casting this game, so
Right,
it's
but
not easy. Like
so,
really good people doing this.
right. But then again, sometimes really good people also don't give good performances, and in this
Agreed.
case, the performances were just stellar, really
Yeah,
well done.
yeah, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
but then I'm out of good things.
Yeah, so let me jump into some of my criticisms of the game.
Okay.
So my biggest criticism My biggest criticism is the Xbox port,
Okay.
which is 1-to-1. Move the mouse cursor with a stick.
Right.
Then, when you go to the inventory, hold A to grab the item, and then continue to hold and drag the stick on said item and release to activate.
Right.
Uh, it's 1-to-1 from PC to Xbox, and I don't think it was very hard to play on a controller. Not hard as in difficult, it's just frustrating because you don't get the same level of accuracy that you would get with the mouse. So
Right.
I started playing it on an Xbox on the Game Pass. I was like, no, I can't. As I'm like, every time I need to collect mugs and I have 6 minutes, I don't have a lot of times to try to grab the mug with the with the cursor.
Right.
I was like, no, screw this. I moved to the PC and I just played the game on PC.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, no, I played it entirely on Xbox, and I will say I think really the only thing that I was really annoyed about is just some basic UI patterns. Like
Yeah,
there's a lock on the door you want to close, right?
yeah,
In the bathroom
yes.
specifically. And that one is impossible on the Xbox.
Hard
Like
to see. Exactly.
it takes like 8 attempts to get to the lock.
Yeah,
And it costs you 30 to 45 seconds that you really need to solve puzzles, right?
exactly.
Um, and
The
I think just making
readability.
that lock a little better, a little bigger, would have already helped a lot. But it seems
Yeah,
like even in the port, there was a little consideration for those things.
exactly. So, like, the readability on a lot of these objects, like, yeah, you mentioned the vent under the cabinet, the locks on the door. Like, it's really pixel hunting, but you're pixel hunting with a controller. It's a bit too much to ask.
I
Not
think
It's still
again,
doable because, like,
right.
many people have finished the game on a
I
controller, but
I played it on Xbox.
it's a criticism. Like, I
Yeah,
feel
for
that
sure.
it was a game that was made on PC, and then they were like, now let's put it on Xbox.
I think mostly some minor tweaks would have really helped.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
it's not. I don't think the controls are like utterly broken on controller, but I do think for the small items in the game, there really needs to be a way to just make them like 10 pixels bigger,
Yeah.
effectively, because you're not really pixel hunting as much as like logic hunting most of the
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
right? Like you have door keys, so you might want to lock the door. And on Xbox, I will say, trying to lock the door by dragging the keys to the door instead of the lock worked,
Yeah.
right? Which is good. But in the
Yeah.
bathroom, if you're trying to lock that door, there's no other way of doing it besides hitting the lock in the door. And I think ultimately it doesn't matter whether you lock the door or not.
No.
But there are situations in which you might want to lock the door or might reasonably want to lock the door, and you start the game with the door locked because your wife's in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you could lock the door. So it should just be a doable thing to
Yeah.
lock the door.
Yeah. Like,
I
looking
think
at it in hindsight is a lot easier to see it, but
for sure,
at the time you go like, it has to be the luck, it has to be this thing, and you try and
right.
loop after loop to see if that's the thing that you need to adjust or not.
So how did you feel the logic of the puzzles grew?
Um, you tell me.
I thought it started really strong.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the kickoff is really good, and you continuously feel like you know what you're looking for because it's pretty much always in the conversations,
Yeah.
right? And then there's one puzzle where you're very dependent on timing.
Yeah.
Then there's one puzzle where you're dependent on combining two items,
Yes.
right? Then there's one where you're dependent on hiding in a spot.
Yeah.
And then there's one where you're dependent on dragging an item onto a character
Yes. Which
at a
one is
specific
that?
time.
It's a
That's
spoiler
the
cast, so you could talk about it.
right. That one is the baby one, the baby name one.
The baby T-shirt one. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now here's the thing. The weird thing about all this is I think most of these puzzles ended up working
Yeah.
and ended up working well.
Yeah.
But I think there's two puzzles in the game that are let's not say a little obnoxious, they're quite obnoxious. So I found it really hard to recognize where the phone was.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was a phone in the house, and I never found a reference to the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the phone was ever mentioned anywhere in dialogue.
Yeah.
So I was not aware that there was a phone. I've hidden in that cabinet, of course.
Yeah.
I just because I was trying to hide from the cop,
Yeah.
I never looked in the clothes.
Yeah.
So I never found the phone.
I see.
And I think that is like the character might have made a mention of like, hey, there must be a phone around, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, why doesn't our main character have a phone? What's wrong with this guy? Then the second one is the baby name.
Yeah.
And I understand that cinematically, like sort of from like a choreography, from a narrative point of view, it makes sense to go full circle,
Mm-hmm.
right? To start with the first reveal to be the solution to the last reveal.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But up until that, the fact that you have to drag this baby shirt that is used to like reveal your wife's pregnancy to you as a surprise, you have to go grab that and then drag it onto the cop who's wondering about the murderer's name.
It kind of breaks the logic that the game presents earlier, in which like
Right.
if you discover something, it becomes a dialogue option.
Right.
And you've discovered the T-shirt, and like when you use the T-shirt on the guy, that means you've come to that conclusion, but it doesn't show up as a dialogue option. So it's left to the player to figure
Right.
out a way to say what they want to say to the characters, and that's not something that happened before or after that moment.
Right. I mean, there is one earlier case where you have to drag an item onto somebody to really like make something work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're usually very clear. There's usually very clear intent behind those actions, right? Drag a gun onto somebody, you shoot. Drag a cup of water onto somebody, you offer a cup. Drag a baby shirt onto something, you're gonna have an argument about a name.
Yeah.
Why can't you just say the name then?
I had a loop once in which like the officer wanted to look at the Polaroid on the fridge. The wife says, "Look on the fridge, it's there." But I had it, so I was like, "Here's the Polaroid. Look at it." He's like, "Get out of my way," and then punched me, and I had to redo the same thing.
Right.
But this time, make sure that I leave the
Didn't
Polaroid.
grab the Polaroid.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
but I thought so. I thought the puzzles were good. Generally, I see a lot of discussion on Twitter about the puzzles being obtuse or like hard to read. I didn't think that was the case. I think there's one or two puzzles that are kind of contradictory in how they work with the game design.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I actually thought the puzzles were pretty straightforward. I had a good time figuring things out.
Yeah, same. 2.5 hours. Like I think 2.5, almost 3 hours. So I like speed my way through the game.
Right.
I wasn't like stuck too much. But that's my criticism is mostly on like the usability and some of the times in which there was an established pattern and that pattern was broken.
For sure. Yeah.
The one narrative criticism I have, before we end the spoilers maybe, the one narrative criticism I have is that I don't like selective amnesia in games, even though that is the most commonly used trope almost when it comes to telling a story.
Right.
And like, when that moment happened, I was disappointed.
Let's just go with like the big plot twist is not very good.
No,
it's actually kind of bad.
Yeah, exactly. So like there was 2 really interesting plot twists that only ended with like I didn't think that you needed the third one.
You know what the problem is with the third twist?
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the third twist is you can see it coming because there's only 3 actors in the game.
Yeah.
Right.
It's that Star Wars thing where like there's this entire galaxy, but Luke and Vader had to be related.
Right. Yeah. And in this case, the had to be related has a lot of very awkward, very unpleasant implications.
Yes. Well, in Luke's case as well.
Right. That's true. But in this case, it's worse because there's a pregnancy involved.
That's true.
For people listening that are like, I didn't play the game, I don't care about spoilers. Basically, what happens is at the end of the game, you realize that. So the sort of the central conceit is you're trying to prove that you're trying to figure out that your wife killed her father.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're trying to figure out that it wasn't your wife because the father survived, and somebody else killed him. And then for the last part of the game, you're kind of trying to figure out who the killer is.
Yeah,
because the killer is the wife's bastard brother from her father's affair with the nanny.
Yeah.
Obviously, the end result of this whole story is that the husband is the brother.
Yeah.
But also the wife is pregnant.
Yeah.
And they're married.
Yeah.
And no.
And he forgot that he killed the father.
Yeah, he had like a traumatic amnesia, or so in the ending, it's kind of suggested that there was some sort of like weird magic involved with that, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it just didn't work. I mean, I thought the acting in the scene where you have the loop where you just don't get to control him because he's panicking and he's like scared,
Yeah,
that was very well done.
that was really
I
good.
just really wish that it was a different twist.
Yes, yes, I agree. I agree. So yeah, like it's a Deus ex machina really of storytelling that
They were all related.
they are all related, and you just happen to forget. Also,
Right,
like now, these events that happened 18 years ago, they're all coming in together in these 12 minutes, and all
right.
everybody's related. It's
It's
it took away, I think, from a very big intrigue, narratively speaking, and like
right.
structurally speaking, artistic direction, all of that was really good. But then, like the third twist was a bummer.
Yeah. And then you also have to go through that twist like 5 times before you figure out what you actually have to do with the ending.
Also, that yeah,
So you're just sitting there and be like, yeah, I know. Like, I married my sister,
yeah,
and now I'm expecting a baby. Anyway, cop guy, this is
yeah.
this is uncomfortable. I understand. Can we get through this? Can we get through this conversation, please? Yeah. Okay. Cool. 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 What a weird. I mean, I respected that they tried. It
Mhm.
didn't work.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
just didn't work for me.
yeah. I same. Like
Cool.
I was like I'm enjoying the hell out of everything about this game, with the exception of some of the usability stuff. But
Right.
I'm really intrigued by the story, and then the story really let me down at the end.
Right. I just really went like I really want the story to be done now.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah. I was like, oh
Uh,
come on, seriously,
yeah.
was like my reaction,
Right.
which is
I think that's always with a twist. That's always sort of the risk that you have. But when you go this hard on a twist,
yeah,
you kind of have to expect that kind of
yeah,
response.
yeah. It's a bit. It was a bit too much over
Right.
there. So should
Yeah.
we say spoiler free and then give our recap?
Yeah. I think spoiler free. Let's do it.
Yeah. So spoiler free. Welcome back, everybody. This is the point.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam alaikum.
Welcome to a 12-minute podcast of the Habibis, because we ended up talking for like, what, 30 minutes about this game?
Wasn't it supposed to be 12 minutes? And then
We were supposed to do 12 minutes. I can't edit it that far. I'm sorry. I'm not that good.
It's an in-depth analysis of 12 minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
But like for those who like skipped the spoiler part, this is the non-spoiler. What we think about the game is that, for me, I love the aesthetic. I love how this game was structured. I love the looping mechanism. I love that every time you die or you loop, you come back with more information that you use to advance the
Inshallah.
story. And there's a lot of really interesting twists in the game's narrative structure. But some of those twists take it a little bit too far and end up
Right.
to be a bit disappointing.
I think the way I would summarize it is a impressive, pretty game with incredible acting talent that is only held back a little by its reluctance to adhere to its own rules and a few odd narrative choices.
Agreed. Agreed. That's
Good.
well put. Well put.
Nice. Nice.
But
I
I'm
should.
I'm happy there's games like this. I
Oh
would
yeah,
love
thank
to
God.
see more of this. Like, I think this is Louis' first game on his own.
Yeah, yeah, very impressive work.
Incredible
Honestly.
debut, right? But I
Right,
know that he's a seasoned developer and he's been making games for some time.
for sure.
But
Yeah,
but
and for
imagine the
people,
next one, like building on
yeah,
this and like all of this experiences. That's an incredible debut for sure. So
for people that are interested in these kind of games, we mentioned Save the Date, which is an old game by Paper Dino Software that you can check out. And I think Fauzi mentioned, what was the name of the series?
the Zero Escape, the Nonary games.
No, Nonary.
There's
Right.
there's one on the DS, one on the
Oh,
3DS and the Vita, and then one that came out on the Switch. And then they
okay.
combined
Awesome.
all of them. You can buy them either. You can buy the entire trilogy together, either on Steam or on PS5, 4, whatever, and all
Nice.
on the Switch. So you can play all three now in a row, which I think is
Okay.
great.
On the Switch sounds good to me.
That's like
I finished another game.
100 hours of gameplay or so. Oh, you
Wow.
finished another game.
I did finish another game.
Oh,
I finished the Action Verge.
oh yeah, that was
which
a
I
good
started
game.
on.
You
did
were playing it last time, right?
Right, Action Verge 2, which was made by Tom Happ. Um, I finished it, and it's very good. It gets far more Metroidvania-y later
Mm-hmm.
on in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think last week I said it's kind of Metroidvania-y. By the end, it's like just full on Metroidvania-y, just with
Okay.
different powers than you're used to. Um, I think I was very impressed by the entire thing, and knowing it's made by a single developer, mostly like watching the credits roll, and it's just like Tom Happ, and
Wow,
then localization, QA, publishing, and a vocalist.
that's incredible.
Um, that yeah, it was very impressive. I I think the other thing that I really liked is it felt big.
Yeah.
The game felt really big, and it feels like there's more secrets or more things to find, more things to do, no matter what you're doing.
Okay.
The story kind of goes everywhere. It's a very action verge kind of story about like life and purpose and faith and technology and sort of like the weird mix where those two collide. And what happens to a society when you start from a different place, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Um,
How long
it
did
was
you?
very pretty. I think I must have taken like I don't know. It feels like 30 hours, but
Oh, 30 hours. Wow, it's a big
I
game.
I'm not sure if it was 30 hours, but it was definitely it felt like 30 hours.
I see.
It felt big.
Nice.
And if it's shorter, then that's very impressive by the game to make me feel like I played more than I actually did. And if it's longer, then it was apparently fun enough that time went fast. But I definitely had to play it for like 6 or 7 nights. Got stuck a bunch of times. That's a little frustrating at times because
Mm-hmm.
the game is not great at communicating where you want to go. It just gives you kind of a dot with go here on the map, and then it's kind of your job to figure out how to get there. But because
Yeah.
you don't necessarily know whether you are missing a skill or you don't have an ability yet, sometimes you can find a place and just be like, okay, well, I guess I need to find something that I don't have yet
Yeah.
somewhere on the map. And you know, if you're going down a path and you miss an exit or something, you just go like, okay, I can go left or right here. Let's go right, and then you just kind of forget that the left one is there because a boss fight happens or something.
Mm-hmm.
Then you might just be stuck until you realize that you skipped that left door.
Yeah.
Um, and you can see that on the map, but you really have to look for it. So I spend a lot of time like pixel hunting the map, just being like, is that a door? Oh my god, that's a door I didn't do yet. And then you go there and it's like, oh no, wait, it's actually a thing I just can't get past. I probably need a power to do that.
It's one of those
Um,
things in the genre that I think some games manage to around like to fix,
right.
but it's still like you have to look at the big map and see what was the area where I was stuck before that I now need to find a way to get back there to kind of progress.
Right, and I will say, but by the end, so Axiom Verge uses these two overlaying maps. So you've got the real world and you've got the breach.
Mm-hmm.
And the breach is sort of this parallel world. And at the start, there's like defined entry and exit points.
Uh-huh.
So there's these gates where you can go into the breach, and then you can do things there, and then find exits that might drop you into different places.
Into the breach, huh?
Into the breach, yeah, very good. A very good game, by the way. Oh my
One
god,
of my favorite games ever.
right. And then so later on in the game, you get the power to exit the breach at any point, and then you end up in the corresponding place in the real world. So there's a bunch of puzzles that are relying on you finding a path through in the breach,
Mm-hmm.
and then exiting the breach at a specific location to end up in a place in the world map where you haven't been yet.
Well,
And then there's a third power that actually allows you to drag along the entry portals in the real world so you can enter the breach
mm-hmm.
in different places. And I will admit, it's a really cool mechanic, but at some point, the sort of like brain level,
Yeah, your brain hurts.
the brain level goes very high. Like there's moments where you're just like, okay, so if I go here and then drag the gate over, and then no, wait, let me check. Yeah, no, if I drag it over here, then there's a path there, and then
Yeah.
maybe I'll go to that place. But I'll have to exit here because I don't think that actually exists in the breach area. So, and
Oh
then
man.
from there, maybe if I drag the same portal over here, then I can exit again. And you're just like, this is some big brain stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was fun, but if 12 minutes can be a little obtuse about its puzzles, Action Verge like revels in it. It's excited to be obtuse every now and then.
Oh man!
But it pays off. It pays off really well. Whenever you figure out a puzzle, you're genuinely excited about it, which is cool.
It seems like it's taken a lot of effort to come to that. So yeah, of course, the joy will be doubled.
Yeah, it was really good, and it plays out a lot of Metroid tropes really well. If you enjoy Metroid, and you know how every Metroid ending is, right, or works, and it kind of works like that again.
I realized as you were talking about this game, I go like, I want to play this game, but there's an actual Metroid coming out this year as well.
Right. Yeah, I think you will appreciate this though, because it's made by one person. It has such a strong sense of culture and place, and I don't want to say authorship because I hate the word.
Yeah.
But it has there's a soul in that game, right? And it's one person's soul, and it's kind of phenomenal. Sort of like where the nerding out happens.
Yeah.
Where the writing happens, where the story goes, what kind of music is there. Like I said last time, a lot of Arabic-inspired music and instruments. So it really has, it's a place, it's a thing, and I really, really liked it.
I gotta check it out then. Yeah, a bunch of Metroid games this year.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it looks like it's picking up in the games industry, right?
Nice,
like we're getting to the dates where stuff is happening again. Like I think the Ghost of Tsushima expansion should be out by now.
Yep.
And then next month I think we have Deathloop.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Coming up.
Another loop game.
More loops. Very excited for loops. There's something in the water, man.
Yeah.
There's something in the water. I like when that happens, though. The games industry has this thing where just suddenly everybody is doing the same thing without discussing it.
Yeah.
I use
that in one of my talks sometimes. And like there was in one E3 in which they've announced Sekiro, Nioh 2, and Ghost of Tsushima. They're all in the same E3. So like this is like 1 year there was 3 games about feudal Japan.
Right. And it's just because everybody felt that there was an opportunity to tackle that place.
Yep.
And there was discussion about doing it for Assassin's Creed. So everybody's went like, you know what? It's probably it's people are gonna enjoy this. And I think that happens in indie as well, like you have like waves of themes in indie, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
But we'll leave that conversation for some time when Osama is with us.
Oh yeah. Osama, come back.
we actually managed to talk for a good 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Probably a little shorter after the edit.
Yeah.
But
only on one game, and we completely skipped talking about anything else. But this time we really stuck to the idea that we're a video games podcast.
Yeah, this time was video games podcast. Let's do a culture podcast sometimes in the nearby future again. Because you need to catch up on What If, from what I understand.
That's true. I've only watched the first episode, so behind.
We can't do the Habibis with Osama there and not talk about What If. So you have to catch up.
Gotta talk about comics.
The man is gonna be sad.
Can't make Osama sad. No,
can't make Osama sad. That'd be sad.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that was the Habibis podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week, and for now, salam.
Salam.
It's different without Osama.
It really is. We need the third salam to come up.
We need a third salam. We also just need the laugh. We really need that laugh track.
That laugh track. It should
laugh track.
Edit it in maybe here at the end. He's just like randomly laughing.
just only here. Just suddenly Osama shows up.
Because I noticed little words. You snuck in a small salam after the outro last week. Just a sneak in a ha-ha from Osama.
Just a little Osama presence. I think I might have to do that. Yeah. It feels sad. It feels a little sad. I think it was good, but the Osama brings warmth.
It's not the same. The Habibis are the Three Musketeers.
I wonder which one Osama is. Remember the time you made him like regret picking his choice for Boyfriend Dungeon?
Yeah.
That was good. I hope things are going.